With Montreal's offense continuing to stagnate, fans left, right, and center are calling for Montreal to make a call-up from Laval. Some places saying guys like Luke Dach to send the message, some saying Joshua Waugh, and even some other names. But Kent Hughes, in a recent article, revealed his thoughts on why they are or maybe are not calling up players from Laval. We have to dive into everything he said. Plus, Michael Hage had a recent quote kind of outlining when he maybe expects to make that jump to the NHL. And we also got to talk about the Four Nations Cup and how Cole Caufield is being left on the sidelines. There's a bunch to talk about on this episode of Habs Digest, and we're going to jump straight into it. And I want to start with Cole Caufield. It might not happen, guys. He might not make Team USA. The guy who leads the NHL in goals. In fact, I'd venture to say maybe it's a hot take. He probably won't make Team USA. We'll dive into a little bit here. There was an article written by Alciola today that I'll link down below. 4 Canadiens players we could see at the Four Nations face-off, mentioning Suzuki, Caufield, Montembeault, and Patrick Laine, of course, if he's back and healthy. But I wanted to make a bit of a deeper dive into Caufield, and I looked at the projected lineup for Team USA, Jesse. And my gosh, this is stacked. Feel free to pause and have a look here. Here's my thoughts on this, Jesse. I'm going to take maybe a bit of a hot take stance here. I look at this roster, and I find it tough to say that this team needs more goal scoring in the sense of Cole Caufield, because there's a lot of veterans here. Or there's big guys who can score like Tage Thompson. Or there's guys who have won a lot, like, they've won cups and stuff like Jake Gensel. Jason Robertson's not having a good year, but I don't know. Do you see Caufield fitting in on this team?
If Cole Caufield is still leading the NHL by the time that the Four Nations comes around in mid-February, he will make this team. But it's looking about like probably his only way of doing it right now, because obviously it's a stacked lineup that we're looking at here. Obviously, he's got his goal scoring, but I think a knock on him, Josh, and a big reason why I think for a lot of fans, we notice that he isn't higher up on this list. We know it's the size, right? Despite the goal scoring. But I mean, if we're looking at some of his competition, like, people like Brock Besser and things like that, like, yeah, he scored 40 goals last year. But other than that, over his career, he's been about a mid-25 goal scoring guy. So it's like, if Cole can really keep up this pace that he's on, which is no small feat, I think that he will, like, just from the optics, he'll have earned it. They'll want that type of scoring, in their bottom 6 there, because he's also shown, Josh, that Cole Caufield can be a big player game.
Yeah, like, he's shown his ability to play really well at the international level, but Team USA has never really used him quite right, it feels like. He's had some good moments with the international team, but yeah, it's yet to be seen. But guys, I want to hear your guys' thoughts, because again, like you mentioned, Jesse, Besser's not even in this projected lineup. Neither is a guy in the same draft year as Cole Caufield. I think he was the same draft year, Matt Boldy, right? There's a lot of big names for Team USA that are not even projected to be on this team. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below on whether you think Cole will make it. But we're going to move on to a prospect that's not yet made that jump to the NHL, but is currently in the NCAA over in the United States, and I'm kind of happy to hear this from Michael Hage, and I'll get into why in just a second. Now, Michael Hage has been off to a very hot start to the season. He has 9 points in 9 games for the University of Michigan. He has been really good, but he is in no rush to turn pro, and I have a little quote from him here that I wanted to show you guys. This is from rg.org. I'll link this article down below as well. He said, "It's about taking it 1 year at a time. I'm in no rush. I want to develop my game and help Michigan win a championship at the same time." And, with the oftentimes anemic offense of the Montreal Canadiens, Jesse, people are calling for him to maybe come over by the end of the season. It's not crazy. It's something Montreal's done before. He has shown that he can score goals at a high level, can create opportunities at a high level. He's 6'1", 190. It's about average size already at 18 years old for an NHL player. To me, like, I'd like to see him, but I also love to hear that he's just focused on getting better in the long term, and I think that really aligns with what Montreal wants from him.
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll get into that just a little bit, how that kind of aligns for this future overall vision, for the Montreal Canadiens. But I mean, like, 9 points in 9 games, at the same time, like, he's been putting like work, a lot of, off the ice to really get him to where he's at right now, which is a big reason. So there is amazing like signs there. And of course, like with the offense that he could provide as early as potentially next year, obviously it is kind of like something that Habs fans are looking for, that they really want on this team. But at the same, it's like, I get not rushing it, with this player, like, Fowler's playing his second season, in the NCAA this year, obviously excelling there. We see lots of examples. Cole played obviously 2 years in the NCAA as well. So I wouldn't be surprised, like, conservatively, like, he will follow that path. But it's interesting to say still that they're looking at it on a year-by-year basis. Like, this isn't completely off the table. No. He is showing that he can produce, but still, you're taking big jumps in hockey. Like, even the fact that the jump to the NCAA from where he was at previously is a huge jump. He's doing really well, right? But you don't, even because of that he could go to the NHL, you always just want to put players in the best possible conditions. So obviously a lot to look forward to here, but definitely think that they're going to err on the side of caution.
Err on the side of caution, but there's got to be that tempting nature to like bring him up, right? And we're going to see how the rest of the season goes. We're still very early, but there was another little note in this article that I just wanted to mention briefly before we move on to our final talk about Kent Hughes. In this article, they said, don't get your hopes up about Hage participating in the World Junior Championships this season. The youngster explains that Hockey Canada has a habit of favoring the players who are playing in the CHL, which he understands. This may change, though, considering the changes made to NCAA eligibility rules. Now the players who have played in the CHL can join the NCAA. Hockey Canada may just have to have an open mind. This has been something we've seen in the past, Jesse. But, it is a little annoying to look at this stat line and to say, yeah, this guy probably won't make the World Junior team. I don't know. I think he would deserve to be there anyway, right? Maybe they won't change their mind this year, but are you putting him on that roster in your head no matter what right now?
Yeah, definitely a little bit biased towards him. And based on merit, like he is just lighting up. He is a dominant player. He is the guy from Michigan right now. You can see he would help Team Canada a lot. I love watching the World Jays. I would love to see him as a part of that. We understand kind of the history there. We see it might be changing now with, some players being able to kind of go over there. But, for most likely, I think Hage knows that it won't be his year to shine, but we know he'll still be putting in the work one way or another.
Excited to see what comes of him in the future. But speaking of the future, Kent Hughes definitely has a mind on the future, and we got to get into something he had to say here. And this is an article that, once again, is linked down below. As always, you guys know you can always find the original sources down there. But this is really big for Montreal's future. And, Kent Hughes has had a lot of quotes recently, and including in this article today, these quotes kind of resurfaced of how he sees, the team and how he doesn't want to make any kind of short-term move that would sacrifice the long-term goals. But there was a quote from this article that I want to show. Basically, he said it's important to learn how to win at each level. He's talking about Laval here. And it also matters to give them, the players in Laval, a chance to do it down there. We for sure look at whether this one or that one can help us right now. We've seen them call out guys like Lucas Condata, of course. But we have to consider if bringing them in and taking them out of that environment would help or hurt their development. There's no easy answer, and it's not always black and white, but we're trying to be guided in our decisions by what would be best in the long term. And you can see some names of guys that are on Laval here: Beck, Mayu, Engstrom, Tuck, Dobesh, and you still have Reinbacher, who's going to be going to the team. When you look at this, Jesse, like hearing him say this, it is very true, because right now Laval is building that winning culture. As of the recording of this video, they're third in the AHL. You have a bunch of guys who are absolutely rolling right now. And while Montreal, the team itself, still wants to be in the mix, as we've heard so many times, bringing up a guy from Laval who is rolling on a team that's winning, getting used to the same systems they use in Montreal, it might not even be worth bringing him up. I kind of see where he's coming from here.
I get it. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like you don't want to bring players that are having success into a situation where it's not so much the case. But it is a kind of a balancing act where those players could arguably benefit that team and kind of help them get out of some of those losing ways, which the team desperately needs. So it's very apt that we are talking about this. I think it's only because they are doing so well. But again, to quote Ivan Demidov regarding the Habs, who he has been keeping an eye on, it's like, it's a young team and they'll figure it out. And I think that that's kind of important to kind of remember when we are looking at all of this kind of the future for what Kent Hughes does want to do. Again, there are examples in sports, from, let's say in the NBA with the Toronto Raptors, where they wanted those guys to win the G League before, and that kind of allowed them to prepare them to win the NBA championship. It did. It was a little bit of a one-off for the Raptors where, the Habs want to be a little bit more perennial contenders. That being said, they won it. And there's a lot to be said for that, of getting your guys like Hage, even who he wants to win a championship, getting your guys to win at the younger level, getting them to know. And sometimes when you can get a certain kind of group of players and then kind of transplanting that kind of together on the new team with all kind of that shared experience of winning is obviously can definitely be valuable. You see it as a rule that's used in a lot of sports, but I think there is a balancing act. And I do think like right now where the Habs are at, that drastic moves are sometimes needed. And I'm a big fan of, let the team develop, but the best players need to be on the ice for this team.
Yeah, it's so tough, right? Trying to manage this. I don't envy Kent Hughes' position right now and who he decides to call up and send down, because no matter what, it's going to be met with criticism. If they call them up and then the player goes back to Laval later and starts to struggle, you blame the call up. If they get called up, Montreal starts rolling, then it's a genius move, right? You don't call them up, they continue to roll in Laval, Montreal doesn't do anything good, then you say, why haven't you called them up? It's a no-win situation, right? So there's always so much stuff going on, but I want to hear what you guys have to say, because Jesse, honestly, At this point, instilling a winning culture is something Montreal wants to do. They're doing it successfully in Laval, and honestly, does anything suck more than going from a team that's amazing to a team that really sucks? It's happened to me before in my life in sports, and, you know, you can still get the positives out of it, but especially when you're young, you're competitive like a lot of these guys. I think a lot of them are going to want to keep those winning ways, and so, you know what? Bringing them up to Montreal soon might not be a bad idea, but I'm going to hear everything you guys have to say down below. Are you ready to call up Joshua Waugh, Owen, Beck? Is it too early? Is it too late? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate the support, guys. We've been getting tons of views, and we have you all to thank for it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.